So I wanted to ask you about the first story.
Is this recording?
Yeah,
I thought you said it was a camera.
it is a video camera.
Okay.
You're on
So
camera.
I wanted to ask you about the story that you told about how it happened that Benji went to yeshiva, and then that was one story. And,
Let's start with that.
Okay.
First of all, Benji went to public elementary school. And matter of fact, our next door neighbor Stein was his kindergarten teacher. Remember in Whitestone?
Right, the lady with the 13 dogs.
And right.
At the dining room table.
And then we moved to Whitestone. One of the reasons we bought the house there, we figured you could go to the school, which was, about 4 blocks away from us. But we didn't realize that it was a different district. Our side of the street was Whitestone, across the street was Flushing.
So
you couldn't go to that school.
Which school is that?
That was going by Grandma, where Grandma B lived. It was a public school. It was a new school, it was a nice school, but it was a different area. So instead you had to go into Old Whitestone and go to 79, PS 79. And you took a bus to get there. Or we drove you, but it was a bus used to pick you up on the corner. And, I was in this kind of business where I was working 15, 16 hours a day. So I was hardly home at all, except to just sleep a little bit. And one day, Benji's in 3rd grade already. By the way, he was going to Hebrew school around the corner at the Garden Jewish Center, which, by the way, is no more. And there was a problem. The bus never got him to class on time. He would always come in after the class started.
In public school?
Or in at the Hebrew school. And the principal there told us that if he can't come in on time anymore because he disrupts the class, we're going to have to ask you to take him out. So we were figuring out a couple of things, but we didn't really do anything about it at the time, and he kept going to school, and he kept coming late. But one day he comes home with homework from the public school, and his homework was very interesting. It was all pictures. And I asked, I had asked him to show me his homework. And I asked him what he does in school. And he showed me pictures. I said, is this all you do? I said, yeah, we draw pictures. So this is 3rd grade. And I don't know what the situation is today, but knowing from Bobby, in his school, my God, he should have been in high school already for what he's learning. So anyway, Mommy and I decided to go to the school. We figured Benji is lying to us. So we decided to go to the school to talk to the principal to find out really what's happening. The principal, I won't even mention the principal's name. But we get there, they asked us to wait, he's down the hall. So we're waiting outside in the long corridors of a public school. And from all the way down the other end, we see a gentleman approaching. And as he comes closer to us, Mommy looks at me, I look at her, we smell alcohol. And the closer he gets, the stronger the aroma of alcohol. He gets within 15 feet and we see his face is up, fiery red. So right there and then we said, thank you very much. We left and we made our decision without even speaking to him that we're taking Benji out of the school. The only problem was private schools were very expensive. Not only were the private schools expensive, but there was nothing around the area and had to travel. I couldn't even afford the expense, the travel expense, to bring him there or bring him back. So we didn't know what we were going to do, but at the time, Mommy was going to Hunter College at night for her master's. And she met the mother of Rabbi Simon from the adjoining community. Forgot the name of it already.
Natalie. Oh,
Natalie's
Clearview.
husband's
Right.
mother.
Right.
Clearview.
Was that the Clearview Jewish Center?
Mrs. Simon.
Clearview Jewish Center?
Clearview, right. And she was talking and she mentioned the Hebrew Academy in North Queens, that it's a new school just opened up, a Hebrew Day school. Actually, she never used the term yeshiva, because if she would have said yeshiva, I never would have sent them there. 'Cause I don't come from that background. I come from a secular background, from a totally secular background. But I liked the idea. I was Zionistic, and all because of Mommy, I believe. And we decided to go and talk to Rabbi Chana. Theodore Chana was the rabbi at the Hank Hebrew Academy in North Queens. Sweet guy. And I explained the situation, and he was telling us they don't accept children from as late as the 3rd grade. They have to come in earlier, but in this case, he was going to make an exception. And I told him I couldn't afford the tuition. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. And they did. I made up for it years later, but at that point they did. And Benji took to it like a duck takes to water. He was in 3rd grade, and he was a chubby kid, a big kid. But they put him into a 1st grade class. And here's this big kid sitting with all these little kids. And I don't know if it was Mrs. Russian, one of the teachers, or Mrs. Mizels, or both of them. But they saw him sitting in this class and said, no, that's just not going to work. So I think it was Mrs. Mizels. Yeah. Took him under her wing, and in about 2 months they moved him up into the 3rd grade. Now in 3rd grade, a lot of these kids were speaking Hebrew. The only Hebrew, the only religion really that Benji was getting was from before that, as when he was 5 years old, 6 years old, was in Sunday school. His maternal grandfather, Zaidie, Reichel.
Great-grandfather, right.
Zaidie Reichel used to take him to Stratford Avenue to the Young Israel every Sunday. And that was really his exposure to religion. But Mommy always came. What's that?
I remember Zaidie took me once to pick Benji up, and we sat together in the shul. There was nobody there. It was dark, just the Ner Tamid, the eternal light up front.
Yeah.
And we just sat there quietly. It made a very big impression on me. You know, and then we picked Benji up. I think that's what it was.
So anyway, we wound up sending him to North Shore Hebrew Academy and North Shore. Hebrew Academy in North Queens. North Shore Hebrew Academy is in Manhasset. And that's how it started. And actually, he was the pioneer in the family.
So did you know Simmy Weinberger?
Sidney Weinberger?
Simmy Weinberger, woman.
That's a woman.
Yeah.
No, I knew Sidney Weinberger.
So Simmy Weinberger, who's Beth Axelrod's mother-in-law, right, told me that she was at Hunter College with Mommy, and she was encouraging her to send us to yeshiva. So she got it from my Simon's mother, apparently, and also from
So probably Mommy got to talking with her, and she said, "Don't use the word yeshiva."
But you told us a pretty awful story about yeshiva when you were a kid.
Yeah, when I was a kid, so the public school that I went to, PS 47, I think it was, across the street, a couple of blocks down, was a yeshiva. We used to walk to school in those days, even though it was, I don't know, it was a distance. But all I remember there at the yeshiva were these guys with the black hats and the black coats. And Mama, that was one of the places, if you don't behave yourself, that's where you're going. You know? So I always put a very bad taste in my mouth. And that was the story of how Benji wound up going to yeshiva. And it's a story how you and your sister went to yeshiva.
That's the story.
Otherwise, everyone would have gone to public school.
And then you said that you had a story of how Benji wound up going to yeshiva high school.
Well, when he graduated elementary school, the yeshiva elementary school, so he took tests for Yeshiva University High School, and he took tests for Bronx High School of Science, and he passed both. And Bronx High School of Science was the creme de la creme of schools in New York City. To get in there, you're really fortunate to be able to get into that school. He really didn't want to go there, though. He only went there because I implored him to go there. I remember saying to him, "You just graduated from elementary yeshiva. You got a whole education. What else is there to know?" And here you have a chance to go to the best school in New York City. So because of that, he did. He went to Bronx High School of Science, but he wasn't happy because he wasn't getting what he wanted.
That's when
so he enrolled himself into the Jewish Theological Seminary. And he would go twice a week to the Jewish Theological Seminary. I used to drive him on Sundays sometimes. And then, I think the end of the first year at Bronx High School of Science, he went to Yeshiva High School.
I think while he was there, at JTS, he had Rabbi Newmark, who was one of his teachers in Hank. Yeah.
Newmark?
Yeah, I think that was.
I don't remember.
Right.
His name is familiar, but I don't remember.
There's Mark.
There's Mark
Newhoff.
Newhoff, that's right.
That's Rabbi Newmark. Rabbi Newmark. But then, didn't you say that some Chafetz Chaim guys came to visit?
Oh yes.
What was that?
Chafetz Chaim came to visit to induce me to send Benji to Yeshiva High School to continue his Hebrew education. Very nice guys, and I admired them giving up their time for this. But and I said thank you very much, and I'll think about it.
So that was before he went to Bronx High School Science.
Oh sure. Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Just a second.
Well, where did they come from, the Chafetz Chaim? From Rabbi Chaim's?
I used to go to Chafetz Chaim
through the shul.
to the kollel over there.
Right, that was also Garden Jewish Center, or that was just through.
No, that's
Rick.
in Forest Hills.
That
It's-
Rick was involved in
This
that.
is
What was his
the
land name?
seminary.
Right.
You used to go to the kollel at the Chofetz Chaim Yeshiva?
Lannon was
Yeah.
involved in that.
But
Rav
that-
Avraham or something, right? Wasn't there a Rav Avraham from Chofetz Chaim that Rick Lannon learned with? He didn't get you involved in that?
That was his first name. Avraham was Stool. I don't remember his last name. I remember he wound up in Los Angeles somewhere in a shul or yeshiva. But the rabbi, let me see, the rabbi I was learning with was Baruch, was his first name. I can't think of his last name. He was a rabbi up in Westchester.
Yeah, I saw him in my shul years later. He came to our shul for something in New Hempstead.
I forgot his last name.
So these are the stories how we wound up in yeshiva, right? Now's another story why we wound up in yeshiva. Because we don't own half of CocaCola and PepsiCola, right?
Say it again.
Because we don't own half of CocaCola and PepsiCola.
Well,
because if you had the money for that, you would have sent us to a private school, probably.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the Coke story and the Pepsi story?
Well, okay. First, I'll tell you. All right. The Coke story is simple. Coca-Cola syrup used to be sold. That's not the soda that you have in a bottle, but syrup. In the old days, you'd go into a what we call a candy store, or maybe a drug store today, and they had a pump. You got a soda in a glass, not from a bottle, and they pumped it from a fountain, and pulled the handle with the seltzer, and put it in the glass, and you had a glass of Coca-Cola. So the syrup was sold generally in gallon jugs, but then Coca-Cola had a special going on, I suppose, and they were selling it in like miniature beer kegs, so beer kegs. And on the outside of each keg was a stock certificate in Coca-Cola. In those days, it was worth nothing, really. It wasn't even worth the paper it was printed on. And every time the drivers would deliver a barrel of syrup, or 2 or 10 barrels of syrup, as much as they needed, pasted onto that was a stock certificate. Most people just took those stock certificates and just threw them in the garbage, because they weren't really worth anything. Some people probably held on to them, saved them, and from nothing. I mean, there were times Coca-Cola split and split and split and split. Probably if you would have had 100 shares of that original stock certificate, you'd be a multimillionaire today.
And how many barrels did Grandpa Charlie deal with?
What's that?
How many barrels did Grandpa Charlie deal with?
Oh, hundreds. Hundreds, if not thousands. Yeah, they ran 5 trucks. So, and then PepsiCola came around later on. Coca-Cola was on the market long before PepsiCola. When PepsiCola first started...
So what year is this about?
Oh, I don't know.
You were working for Grandpa Charlie with the Coke
That's
kegs?
long before I was that age.
He told you the story.
Right. So when Pepsi first started, they didn't even have their own bottles. They used everybody else's bottle. Mission Orange was, I don't know, you ever hear of Mission?
Yeah.
It's, all the different companies, no matter what company's bottles they were, didn't matter.
And they were putting soda in it or syrup in it?
No, soda. It was soda. And then they didn't have, their business started to increase a little bit, and they needed a warehouse because to store their merchandise. So my father had a pretty big operation, and not my father's father, but everybody in the syrup business actually was approached, and everybody turned them down. But all they wanted him to do was to warehouse the stuff for him. And they give him a certain percentage. They would award him the right, like the franchise, to cover all of New York City. And every syrup company turned them down. But I'll tell you what a franchise for all of New York City would amount to. I'll put it this way, I would say, even today, and I'm not that familiar anymore with the industry, but there must be at least 100 franchises in New York City alone, just for PepsiCola. Each franchise has got to be worth well over $1 million. Some as much as 30 or 40 million dollars. As a matter of fact, Grandpa Max had a friend, what's his name? We once on a picnic with him. I'll think of it. But anyway, he had a franchise which he sold when he retired. And he sold, I remember, like $1 million, $1.5 million. And it was a small route, it wasn't a big route.
How long ago was that? In the 1960s? 50s?
This would have been, we were just married. Must have been in the early 50s.
And he already sold it for more than $1 million.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, so you can imagine what anyone owning the rights to all of New York City. And that was the story with Coke.
That's another
and
reason
Pepsi.
we went to yeshiva.
Why? What's the connection?
You didn't have money.
We didn't have the money. If we had the money, we'd have been in a private school.
Oh, Beshet.
That's right. So we got a bigger treasure. Baruch Hashem.
Okay, that's the way you look at it.
No regrets.
Yeah. And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
So that was, and it's Pesach. It goes.
Okay,
That's
so
how
the
the matzah crumbles. Thank you. This is great.